Hello and welcome to this exploring session, the second half of Fair M, the Miller's Daughter of Manchester, with the love of William the Conqueror. We don't really need to worry too much about him. So it's a play with very much two plots. As per usual with any early modern play, we can't be really certain which of those plot titles has dominance, or in fact, if any of them have, precedence over other titles as well. So we often have this question as to, is the title of the play applicable? It's reasonably applicable. We've definitely got Fair M as a central figure, and we've definitely got the issue of the love of William the Conqueror. I say, which of these A or B plots you want to follow is entirely up to you. We don't know who it's by. It comes from around 1590, maybe 89, maybe 1591, somewhere in that sort of era. And from the Lord Stranger's company, and it is a relatively short play. We're doing it in 2 sessions. We've done the first part. If you want to know what's going on, go back to the first part. It's all it's a bit confusing, even though the plot is in itself very simple. There are some men who are after a reduced number of women in terms of their overall numbers. So there are 4 men after Fair M, and there are 2 men after Mariana in the William the Conqueror plotline. And there are various methods and questions about how they are going to resolve all these confusions. There's an awful lot of incident, which looks confusing from a distance, but once you're into it, it's fine. So I say, do go back before we go forward. We have assembled this exciting room of people to read through the play. This second half of the play, we're going from Act 3, Scene 2, and today reading the part of the Miller is...
Hello, Dan, actor in Montpellier, France.
Reading the part of Trotter and a citizen today is...
Hello, Helen Good, historian, exiled in Yorkshire.
Reading the part of Fair M herself, Demarch and Mariana is...
Hi, I'm Tamara. This is Sammy, and I am exiled to Germany at the moment.
Reading the part of Manvile, one of the suitors in theory of Fair M is... muted at the moment.
Hi, my name is Miss Olivia Mumford.
Reading Blanch, who is in love with William the Conqueror for reasons that we haven't quite fathomed, but not loved by him, and also Rocillio is...
Liza Graham, exiled in London.
Reading the part of Montney, one of the suitors for Fair M, and a soldier is...
Hi, I'm Francis Cox, exiled happily in Amsterdam.
Reading Valingford, yet another suitor for the affections of Fair M, and also Elner is...
Lynn Freitas, teacher at home in Oregon, United States.
Reading Lubeck, best mate to William the Conqueror, in love with Mariana and in a really tricky situation as William's set his sights on her. And also reading The Ambassador is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm not exiled, but sometimes I wish I was.
Reading The King of Denmark, Zweno, is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
And today I am your host, Robert Crighton, but I am also William the Bastard, or otherwise known later in his life as William the Conqueror. Please do not hang any tanned cowhides over the side of any castles. I will get very, very cross. Okay, without further ado, we will go on to Act 3, Scene 2, a relatively short scene. Most of the scenes in this play are quite short. We'll see if there's anything to say after this. Enter Valingford and Montney at 2 sundry doors, looking angrily each on other with rapiers drawn.
Valingford, so hardly I disject an injury thou hast proffered me, as were it not that I detest to do what stands not with the honour of my name, thy death should pay thy ransom of thy fault.
And Montney, had not my revenging wrath, incensed with more than ordinary love, been loath for to deprive thee of thy life, thou hadst not lived to brave me as thou dost. Wretch as thou art, wherein hath Valingford offended thee? That honorable bond which lately did confirm in presence of the gods, when with the Conqueror we arrived here, for my part have been kept inviolably. Now, till now, too much abused by thy villainy, I am enforced to cancel all those bands, by hating him which I so well did love.
Subtle thou art and cunning in thy fraud, that, giving me occasion of offence, thou pick'st the quarrel to excuse thy shame. Why, Valingford, was it not enough for thee to be a rival twixt me and my love, but counsel her, to my no small disgrace, that when I came to talk with her of love, she should seem deaf, as feigning not to hear?
But has she, Montney, used thee, as thou sayest?
Thou knowest too well she hath, wherein thou couldst not do me greater injury.
Then I perceive we are deluded both. For when I offered many gifts of gold and jewels to entreat for love, she hath refused them with a coy disdain, alleging that she could not see the sun. The same conjectured I to be thy drift, that feigning so she might be rid of me.
The like did I by thee, but are not these natural impediments?
In my conjecture merely counterfeit. Therefore, let's join hands in friendship once again, since that the jar grew only by conjecture.
With all my heart, yet let's try the truth thereof.
With right goodwill, we'll straighten to her father and learn to whether this be so or not.
And we'll just briefly pause there. Liza's standing by for the next scene. There's props already. But we'll briefly stand here because this is one of these vault-face scenes. So Mountjoy and Valingford had agreed that all's fair in love and war earlier. And now, having both been rejected, they're going to take their grievances out on each other. And yet, by the end of the scene, oh no, we'll be friends. It's one of those kinds of plays, people, where people are going badang badang every few minutes. Any thoughts? Anyone want to leap in, or do we want to move forward before we do? Francis.
Well, yeah, as you say, I mean, they bury the hatchet pretty quickly. People's motivations turn on a sixpence in this play.
Tamara.
Oh, I just remembered that yesterday we said something along the lines of, would the two spares possibly be killed off? And we've got our answer now.
No, they're not. They're not dead. This is no Friar Bacon, Friar Bungay. The two random love interests do not kill themselves in some terrible incident. It's it is really interesting. The question of relationships between men in love seems to be another theme that this play is playing with, because we've got the same theme going on with William the Conqueror and Lubeck.
To be fair, they were friends.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's not far-fetched that all of a sudden they made up there.
It's it's what people are doing in this play, at least in part, is they're talking to each other. It's not like one of those plays you're sitting there just tell them the thing that will make this all fine. Eric.
It's also that thing you kind of wonder well, they're both in love with this person, supposedly. So if they, find out the truth, then what? Like, are they going to kill each other, try killing each other again as rivals, or what? What's going to happen next?
Well, I say the nature of this quarrel is they think that each other has the one has been, tutoring her to be dishonest to the other. So it's that's not fair play. That's not playing cricket. In this, because they did have a sort of gentleman's agreement, which one of them immediately said he was going to break, almost immediately, and the other one sort of started going back on, but not quite all the way. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next scene? Liza's all ready for the next scene, and I'm in it. It's a short one as well, for enter William and Blanch disguised with a mask over her face. Come on, my love, the comfort of my life. Disguised thus we may remain unknown, and get we once to seas, I force know then, we quickly shall attain the English shore.
But this I urge you with your former oath. You shall not seek to violate mine honor until our marriage rites be all performed.
Mariana, here I swear to thee by heaven, and by the honour that I bear to arms, never to seek or crave at hands of thee the spoil of honourable chastity, until we do attain the English coast, where thou shalt be my right espoused queen.
In hope your oath proceedeth from your heart, let's leave the court, and betake us to his power that governs all things to his mighty will, and will reward the just with endless joy, and plague the bad with most extreme annoy.
Lady, as little tarriance as we may, lest some misfortune happen by the way. And they saunter off. Oh, William, he doesn't know. He doesn't know.
Well, but is this not, when you have so many, a play in which several men blindly pursue the same woman, is it not simply a metaphor for he doesn't know who he's pursuing? He loves, but he doesn't know.
Not so far in this play. This is probably the first of a scene like that. Other thoughts, Francis?
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that Blanch echoed a line of Mariana's earlier, where Mariana said something like, you know, I'm going to let William pay court to me, and I'm going to do everything he says, but I'm not going to have sex with him. I'm not going to let him do anything that's going to sully my reputation. And Blanche says pretty much the same thing to him in this scene, where she says, you know, you're not going to take my chastity. I just thought that was interesting.
Where's the question? Is Blanche doing a proper Marianne impression, and does Marianne have a particular way of speaking that can be imitated in that way? Alan?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to make that point, because Blanche was actually briefed by Mariana in the previous section. Yeah. So the two girls have cooked something up between them. And if that involves the use of the same turn of phrase, that may well have been part of the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, swapping clothing and you know, making the full package there to make sure that William doesn't suspect a thing. Helen, I saw a hand.
No, I was going to say exactly what Alan said, that it's the reason they're saying the same thing is because they plan to say the same thing.
Yeah, there should be perhaps a little rehearsal scene. Liza?
I wonder, William fell in love with Blanche at the top of the play. I quickly scrolled back and read it. He fell in love with Blanche having seen a painting of her face. And now the whole, now her getting away with marrying him depends on him not seeing her face. It's kind of an interesting little...
In a sense, he's seeing another painted face.
Yeah.
Isn't he? Alan, were you?
Yeah, we did explore this yesterday in the chat, because effectively it was almost an Anne of Cleves situation, that the picture he'd seen was somewhat flattering, shall we put it.
Well, we don't know. I mean, this is a casting staging decision as to, you know, how accurate, you know, what it is
that's the way the words came across anyway.
Yeah. But it is really a question of how much of an arsehole is William in this regard. And I'm not particularly inclined to give him that much of a benefit of the doubt yet, but we shall see. Eric?
I was just going to say, like, okay, maybe he doesn't recognize her face, but, or, you know, or like, maybe they swap clothing and stuff, but how similar are their physical anatomies? I mean, like, it's kind of assumed that they're pretty much identical. Or is she wearing like a long cloak or something to sort of hide, like, I don't know, not necessarily imperfections, but like sort of hide the differences and stuff?
Well, I think there is an element with, you know, with with costuming here that the costume really does is a huge amount of what you're seeing, especially in female clothing of the period. It can be very all-consuming and all-covering. Again, this is a production decision. But you know, if you have you know, a full dress and a cloak, and you know, maybe there's a wig and or a whack and great hat or something, you know, how much of the human being are you seeing under all of that material, depending on the fashion that you're going with? Helen.
You've also got to remember that in the early modern theatre, a very, very small half mask renders people who've known you all your life completely ignorant of who you might be.
Yeah.
I've never worked this one out, but
yeah.
it's
well, we
true.
don't know it's a half mask, you know. For all we know, you know, it could be very extreme. It could be very extreme.
No, but I mean, what I mean is that people are constantly failing to recognize people they know really well because they're wearing a tiny little scrap of disguise.
Yeah, but
it's
that's somebody else's problem, really, isn't it? Is it ours? Is it ours?
No.
You know, William doesn't know Mariana very well. You know, he's only met her a few times. In the context of this, it probably works. Unless he is Batman, she is Batman, in which case it's all fine.
Don't tell anyone.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to Act 3, Scene 4. Super short as well. We are all the way back to Manchester. Mancunian accents, everyone. No. Enter the miller, his man Trotter, and Manvile.
I tell you, sir, it is no little grief to me you should so hardly conceit of my daughter, whose honest report, though I say it, was never blotted with any title of defamation.
You're muted at the moment, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Father Miller, the repair of those gentlemen to your house hath given me great occasion to mislike.
As for those gentlemen, I never saw in them any evil entreaty, but should they have proffered it, her chaste mind hath proof enough to prevent it.
Those gentlemen are so honest as ever I saw. For i' faith, one of them gave me 6 pence to fetch a quart of sack. See, master, here they come.
And enter Montney and Valingford.
Trotter, call M. Now they are here together, I'll have this matter thoroughly debated.
And exit Trotter.
Father, well met. We are come to confer with you.
With his daughter, rather.
Thus it is, Father, we are come to crave your friendship in a matter.
Gentlemen, as you are strangers to me, yet by the way of courtesy you shall demand any reasonable thing at my hands.
What? Is the matter so forward? They came to crave his goodwill.
It is given us to understand that your daughter is suddenly become both blind and deaf.
Mary, God forbid I have sent for her. Indeed, she hath kept her chamber this 3 days. It were no little grief to me if it should be so.
This is God's judgment for her treachery.
Enter Trotter leading M.
Gentlemen, I fear your words are too true. See where Trotter comes leading of her. What ails my M? Not blind, I hope.
Montney and Valingford both together, and Manvile, to whom I have faithfully vowed my love. Now, M, suddenly help thyself.
This is no dissembling, Valingford.
If it be, it is cunningly contrived of all sides.
Trotter, lend me thy hand, and as thou lovest me, keep my counsel, and justify whatsoever I say, and I'll largely requite thee.
Ah, that's as much as to say you would tell a monstrous, terrible, horrible, outrageous lie, and I shall soothe it. No, by lady.
My present extremity will me, if thou love me, Trotter.
Ah, That same word, love, makes me do anything.
Trotter, where's my father?
Why, what a blind dunce you are! Can you not see? He standeth right before you.
And he thrusts upon her father.
Is this my father? Good father, give me leave to sit where I may not be disturbed, sith God hath visited me both of my sight and hearing.
Tell me, sweet Em, how came this blindness? Thy eyes are lovely to look on, and yet have they lost the benefit of their sight? What a grief is this to thy poor father?
Good father, let me not stand as an open-gazing stock to everyone, but in a place alone as fits a creature so miserable.
Trotter, lead her in. The utter overthrow of poor Goddard's joy and only solace.
Exit the Miller, Trotter, and M.
Blind and deaf. Then she will work for me. And glad am I so good occasion has happened. Now will I away to Chester, and leave these gentlemen to their blind fortune.
And exit Manville.
Since fortune hath thus spitefully crossed our hope, let us leave this quest and hearken after our king, who is at this day landed at Liverpool.
And exit Montney.
Go, my lord, I'll follow you. Well, now, Montney is gone, I'll stay behind to solicit of my love, for I imagine that I shall find this is but a feigned invention, thereby to have us leave off our suits.
And exit Valingford. All sorts of things going on in this scene. You know, the Miller's coming across a bit better than he did at the beginning. It's quite interesting the way he plays out in this, because you've got Manville turns up and says, your daughter's up to things. And he just says, no, she's not. So, you know, he's just going, this is just clearly, even if they're turning up with that intent, she's not going to do that. So, no. When they then turn up, he's keeping them in, it's his courtesy. As you are strangers, by courtesy, I must sort of, it's that sort of perhaps gentlemanly courtesy that's making him even allow these people within his house. And then M gets these lovely asides of just, help! Everybody's here! And has to do this slightly awkward bargaining with Trotter, who has that wonderful, you would have me tell a monstrous, terrible, horrible, outrageous lie. I mean, it's mostly just sort of plot and moving things along, but there's lots of little details in this I'm finding really interesting. Lynn?
It's unexpected to me anyway that of all the people who would stay behind, it's Valingford. That seems really random, because the rules of romantic comedy say that she ends up with Manville, but Manville's the first to leave, and then what did you call these? These are the rejects. These are the guys she's not going to go with. But one of them stays and says, I still think she's faking. So I'm going to stay and try to talk her into marrying me.
Well, I did say at the beginning, they're on a sliding scale. So Manville is obviously a complete arse. And is quite happily kicked to the curb. Montney, when he encountered her in the street and she was pretending to be a bit deaf, was also a bit of, not as much, but was a bit. Valingford, I don't think, has actually done anything egregiously unpleasant. He has plighted his suit, but actually Valingford has been fine. And in the relationship between Montney and Valingford, Valingford is the one who didn't immediately turn on his friend in the same way as Montney did. So I think there is a sort of sliding scale on suitor here. I mean, for all we know, she ends up with Trotter. Tamara.
I just want to go back to the fact that Fair M seems to get some amazing funny bits, because I'm just going to assume that her blind and deaf acting have been hugely exaggerated and physical. I mean, we've had this discussion about how appropriate this might be, but I think if you over-exaggerate somebody who is obviously able-bodied and doesn't know how to be blind and doesn't know how it is to be deaf, then I hope it wouldn't be so offensive and it would rather be quite funny. And then having her turn up to this scene and go, it's both. So now not only do I have to be one thing, I have to be both at once. I think that can be quite funny. Again, obviously being aware that, you know, this is an able-bodied person playing at a disability.
Other thoughts? Liza, you're muted.
And I think the most ableist thing is that the assumed disability then makes her unmarriageable. That the one person who stays with her not because of true love, but because he suspects that she's faking. They all three would agree that if she were really blind and deaf, that she would not be a fit wife for them, which is kind of gross, honestly.
Other thoughts? Alan?
Yeah, I was just trying to think through, and I think you could probably style the three prospects there as dim, dumb, and dumber.
Yep. Other thoughts? Helen?
I always liked the little bits. One of them gave Trotter 6 pence to fetch a quart of sack. And I was trying to work out exactly what that meant in terms of, was that a good thing to do or a bad thing to do? And I was working out how much a quart of sack should cost. And in fact, it's quite a reasonable, if it's a carry out in your own jug, then 6 pence is about right for a quart of sack. But in fact, I don't think that's what it is. I think it's a remuneration for bringing it, in which case it's very generous indeed. It's about half a day's wage for an unskilled labourer.
Yeah, that was my impression too. That was that was my tip for doing the job for him. So I think he's a good guy.
I
that
think
seems to be the joke. Yeah, is you know.
Yeah, I think it is. But I've just wasted in the past few minutes working out the how much a quart of sack would cost. 8.5 pence in the house.
That's really good to know, and I'm very grateful to you for wasting that time finding it.
Well, it's quite famous. 2 gallons is 5 shillings and 8 pence in a London tavern. That's the famous one.
Right. Any other thoughts before we move on to Act 3, Scene 5? Okay. Enter Marquis Lubeck and the King of Denmark, angrily, with some attendants.
Well, Lubeck, well, it's not possible, but you must be consenting to this act. Is this the man so highly you extolled, and play a part so hateful with his friend? Since first he came with thee into the court, what entertainment and what countenance he hath received, none knows better knows than thou. In recompense whereof he quites me well, to steal away fair Mariana, my prisoner, whose ransom being lately agreed upon, I'm deluded of this by the escape. Besides, I know not how to answer it, when she shall be demanded home to Swethia.
My gracious lord, conjecture not, I pray, worser of Lubeck than he doth deserve. Your highness knows Mariana was my love, sole paragon and mistress of my thoughts. Is it likely I should know of her departure, wherein there is no man more injured than I?
Has Alan frozen?
Yeah, looks frozen.
Perhaps.
I think so. I can't even see him anymore.
Tell us what to do, Robert.
Robert's muted. and
Sorry,
hasn't
I've been
noticed.
talking, whittling away there, and nobody was actually hearing me. Yeah, okay, we seem to have lost the King of Denmark there. So, yeah, he's definitely gone now. So, who's not Rocillio and not Mariana and not already in the scene? Who's free? Dan, you are the King of Denmark, briefly.
That carries reason, Marquis, I confess. Call forth my daughter. Yet I am persuaded that she, poor soul, not suspected not her going. For as I hear, she likewise loved the man which he to blame did not at all regard.
Enter Rocillio and Mariana.
My lord, here is the Princess Mariana. It is your daughter is conveyed away.
Have we lost Dan too?
No, he just had a cough at a vital moment. King of Denmark has a coughing fit, and...
What, my daughter gone? Now, Marquis, your villainy breaks forth. This match is of your making, gentle sir, and you shall dearly know the price thereof.
You either of, or that there was intent in Robert to steal thus your highness daughter. Let leavings in heaven in injustice presently confound me.
Not all the protestations thou canst use shall save thy life. Away with him to prison. And minion, otherwise it cannot be, but you are an agent in this treachery. I will revenge it thoroughly on you both. Away with her to prison. Here's stuff indeed, my daughter stolen away. It booteth not thus to disturb myself, but presently to send to English William to send me that proud knight of Windsor hither, here in my court to suffer for his shame, or at my pleasure to be punished there. Withal, that Blanch be sent me home again, or I shall fetch her unto Windsor's cost, yea, and William's too if he deny her me.
And exit Zweno, King of Denmark, and the rest. That escalated quickly, didn't it? So, did we miss this earlier? Was there a mention of Mariana being his prisoner in the first half?
Yes.
Did I just miss
Yeah.
that?
Yes, she's held, but she's being ransomed.
Yes,
It's
it's not a money issue.
It's yeah.
They were talking about the money coming together nicely, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's yeah, and then it gets even worse because it's like Mariana turns up and then it's just, what? My daughter? Yeah, Zweno's dialogue gets nicely sort of multi-directional. I found that quite interesting. Way to prison, minion. Yeah, he's quite unhappy.
He's blaming everyone.
Yeah. Well, why not? Why not? He's the king.
He's a king.
Yeah. Eric.
Well, I was going to say that William doesn't really seem like much of a strategist here, because, like, surely he would have known that kidnapping either princess would have had repercussions. So, like, obviously, he's so blinded with love that he cannot think straight, or theater.
Well, he's just hoping the North Sea will come to his aid, won't he? Yeah, I don't think he cares. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this? Again, lots of short, choppy scenes we're getting here. I mean, the thing is, we're stopping and starting and slowing down this, but this is scene, coming at us really quick fire. Francis.
Yeah, sorry, it's just another of my historical questions because I'm often quite dunce on these things. But this whole thing about ransoming somebody, I know it from Game of Thrones, of course, but could somebody, Helen, probably provide me some background here? Was this a sort of common thing?
Yes.
That's it.
Basically, if you were of rank, then there was a fairly well-established system. You would get captured in battle and sold back.
Right.
If you were the rank and file, you just died horribly.
Right.
Because you weren't worth ransoming. So you get captured and you're wealthy. It's an inconvenience.
Yeah.
And it will cost you a lot of money. Richard I basically bankrupted the kingdom when he got captured because his ransom was, the GDP times 3 or something. It was a ridiculous sum of money.
Did they also have? Did they also keep people hostage to make sure that the opposing, the family in an opposing country, didn't attack? Like Greyjoy in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Right.
Basically, Game of Thrones is clearly real, is what Helen's saying there. Liza.
Now, Helen, you are the actual historian, so I don't want to tread on your toes at all by talking about this. Do you want to talk first?
I've said what I had to say.
Really?
Yes. There were hostages for good behavior. There were pledges for continued loyalty. It happened all the way through.
Right.
I mean, that's where the Game of Thrones author just nicked it from there.
Right.
I mean, Francis I of France bankrupted France by getting captured at Pavia.
Yeah, and all the stuff about Robin Hood, about John taxing the realm exorbitantly, was to pay Richard's ransom so the king could get back. It was Richard's goddamn fault for getting himself captured. But a prisoner who was worth a great ransom, would I be right in saying, Helen, that if you were noble enough to be ransomed, your captor was then obliged to keep you in relative comfort?
Yes, it sometimes worked against you, because certainly with the Scots, they would deliver up the person who had been kept for ransom with a bill for their keeping. So sometimes you were, as well as your ransom, you were also charged for your keep. Especially if it was felt that you had been kept rather well. And this sometimes came as a nasty shock to the ransomee.
And the same with hostages. I think that if someone was a hostage, there would be consequences if war were declared or treachery happened. But you would keep them while the person was behaving well. You would treat them as a guest, or.
Well, yes. Not only that, they would have their own household. They would have their own servants. Very often, it was a child or a youngish person, and they would have their tutors and their servants, their horses and their hounds and all sorts of things. There was just a guard to make sure that they didn't bugger off.
Okay. A lovely tangent. I enjoyed it very much. Let us. We don't have very much text to do today, so it's fine. So, Act 3, Scene 6, and it's me again, and a soldier who is Francis. So that's fine. Just checking. He's just the King of Demark, who we've lost. We'll see if he comes back. So it's enter William. I've been taken with soldiers. So, this should be interesting. I don't know what's going on here. Would any cross, could any plague be worse? Good heaven or hell, did both conspire in one to afflict my soul, invent a greater scourge than presently I am tormented with? Ah, Mariana, cause of my lament, joy of my heart, and comfort of my life, for though I breathe my sorrows in the air, and tire myself, or silently I sigh, my sorrows afflicts my soul with equal passion.
Go to, Sir Sirrah, put up, it is to small purpose.
Hence, villains, hence, dare you lay your hands upon your sovereign?
Well, sir, we will deal for that. But here comes one will remedy all this. My lord, watching this night in the camp, we took this man, know not what he is, and in his company was a gallant dame, a woman fair in outward shew she seemed, but that her face was masked, we could not see the grace and favour of her countenance.
Tell me, good fellow, of whence and what thou art.
Why do you not answer, my lord? He takes scorn to answer.
And takest thou scorn to answer my demand? Thy proud behaviour very well deserves this misdemeanour at the worst be construed. Why dost thou neither know, nor hast thou heard, that in the absence of the Saxon Duke, Demarch is his especial substitute, to punish those that shall offend the laws?
In knowing this, I know thou art a traitor, a rebel and mutinous conspirator. Why, Demarch, knowest thou who I am?
Pardon, my dread lord, the error of my sense and misdemeanour to your princely excellence.
Why, Demarch, what is the cause my subjects are in arms?
Free for my thoughts, my dread and gracious lord, from treason to your state and commonweal, only revengement of a private grudge by Lord Deroux lately preferred me, that stands not with the honour of my name, is cause I have assembled for my guard some men in arms that may withstand his force, whose settled malice aimeth at my life.
Where is Lord Deroux?
In arms, my gracious lord, not past 2 miles from hence, as credibly I am ascertained.
Well, come, let us go. I fear I shall find traitors of you both. I go away for a long weekend, and everybody's fighting.
Sorry.
You're back for a moment.
Yeah. A minor character who said, I think, 2 lines in the first scene is creating Argy, of which we have no mention of in the last hour of the play. In fact, any part of the play, apart from he existed as a character in the first scene. Deroux, I tell a lie. He had 5 lines. 5 lines of him. I knew I couldn't trust him. Lynn.
Yeah, this play is surprising me. The fact that the Fair M love plot is not falling out the way I would have predicted. Yeah, William the Conqueror getting captured by one of his lords who doesn't recognize him at first and then suddenly does. And like right now, we don't know whether to believe him or not, whether there's some kind of a grudge match between him and Deroux, or whether he is trying, in the absence of William of Normandy, to reinstall the Old English monarchy. Well, I have no idea what's going on. And the thing about comedies is they're usually quite predictable, and that's one of the things that's actually very satisfying about it, is that you know the hero and heroine are going to get together in the end, and the bad guy is going to come up. And so this is surprising me. It's an unusual sort of experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing. If we were talking a bit about genre the other day, and there was some pushback on the idea that this is a comedy, because we are in the early 1590s. Genres are starting to settle down and be delineated. But this play is it's doing a bit of history, sort of. It's doing a love plot. There is comedy in there. There's bits which are explicit comedy as opposed to sort of comedy of situation. So it's this play is doing a lot of things, and yeah, it just keeps changing direction almost every scene, and that's a really interesting dramatic technique, which we may see more elaboration on later in the next century. Other thoughts? Eric, then Dan.
I think Dan was first, though. So
Dan first, then.
Not sure, but okay. It reminds me, going back to James IV again, and those early history, those 1590s early histories, where we're expecting them because we think we're familiar with history plays, that they should be a certain way. They shouldn't necessarily, it should be serious here and then funny here, or just whatnot. But in fact, it's not really, the genre is not defined. And I was resistant to the idea of playing this farcical because it wasn't speaking to me that way. It felt much more like an honest play, and I feel like the comedy will come out that way if it is played honestly.
Eric.
Yeah, I was gonna say that when a king disguises himself, or like some sort of noble, like Musidorus or William in this case, you always expect that moment of, do you know who I am? And it's like it actually happened, and yeah, I'm just entertained by that concept.
Yes, knowest thou who I am?
And he's not even wearing a mask. Maybe nobody knows who each other are.
To be fair, this is probably at night. You know how it is. And if you're not expecting to see a person, maybe he changed his hair while he was abroad. For his journey. I get very confused by people when they change their hairstyles.
Actually, me too.
Yeah, so I'd go with that. I think he shaved his head when he went. Tamara.
Well, I was just going to say, I love the fact that his disguise seems to be on point, whereas the two suitors immediately recognized each other yesterday, even though they were in disguise. So apparently Clark Kent's disguise works on William, but not on lower level characters.
I suspect that the disguise for those other characters was quite superficial. It was just a travelling cloak or something. I don't, because it's not really a plot point. I think it's just more that they're being a bit furtive in their journeying or something like that. But maybe not. Maybe I'm just being too kind. Act 4. Let's go on. More stuff going on. I'm sure the next scene will be a continuation of what we've had before and won't be in any way surprising. So, Act 4. Enter the citizen of Chester and his daughter Elner and Manville.
You don't think that might be Eleanor?
It could be an Eleanor, but it's just Elner as it's spelt. Dealer's choice. You do what you like.
I think it's Eleanor. Indeed, sir. It would do very well if you could entreat your father to come hither. But if you think it be too far, I care not much to take a horse and ride to Manchester. I'm sure my daughter is content with either. How sayest thou, Eleanor? Art thou not?
As you think, you shall think best. I must be contented.
Well, Elmer, farewell. Only thus much I pray. Make all things in readiness, either to serve here or to carry thither with us.
As for that, sir, take you no care, and so I betake you to your journey.
And exit Manville, but enter Valingford.
But soft! What gentleman is this?
Godspeed, sir. Might a man crave a word or two with you?
God forbid else, sir. I pray you, speak your pleasure.
The gentleman that parted from you, was he not of Manchester, his father living there of good account?
Yes. Marry, is he, sir? Why do you ask? Belike you have some acquaintance with him?
I have been acquainted in times past, but through his double dealing, I am grown weary of his company. For, be it spoken to you, he hath been acquainted with a poor miller's daughter, and divers times has promised her marriage. But what with his delays and flouts, he hath brought her into such a taking that I fear me it will cost her her life.
To be plain with you, sir, his father and I have been old acquaintance, and a motion was made between my daughter and his son, which is now thoroughly agreed upon, save only the place appointed for the marriage, whether it should be kept here or at Manchester. And for no other occasion he is now ridden.
What hath he done to you that you should speak so ill of the man? Valingford. Oh, gentleman, I cry you mercy. He is your husband that shall be. If I knew this to be true, he should not be my husband were he never so good. And therefore, good father, I would desire you to take the pains to bear this gentleman company to Manchester to know whether this be true or no.
Now, trust me, gentlemen, he deals with me very hardly, knowing how well I meant him. But I care not much to ride to Manchester to know whether his father's will be he should deal with me so badly. Will it please you, sir, to go in? We will presently take horse and away.
If it please you to go in, I'll follow you presently.
And exit Elner and her father.
Now shall I be revenged on Manville. Why, this means get M to my wife, and therefore I will straight to her father's and inform them both all of that has happened.
Exit. Okay, lots going on here. Well done. It's going to be one of those sessions where cast members are dropping like flies, and already we've got people talking to each other. So, yeah, this could be fun. Okay, so What's going on?
Well, gosh.
Not a rhetorical question. What's going on?
What?
Manville is engaged to somebody else.
He's a quick worker.
That's convenient.
But no, this is a long term. It's arranged between the fathers. This isn't a recent thing.
It doesn't feel like it, does it?
But we had no mention of any of this before.
This convenient new plot point appears.
Well, it never came up.
Hang on. I mean, I agree that it reads as though it predated the miller's daughter, but in the last scene where she demonstrated herself to be blind and deaf, didn't he say when he left that he would seek out a better wife or something?
Now I away to Chester and leave these gentlemen to their blind fortune.
No, he does. You're right. My mistake. He doesn't say that.
Yeah. So it makes him even more of a cad. But then why would he go mad? It raises more questions than answers so far. And the King of Denmark has returned to the room. I think he didn't seem to respond there, so maybe that's not quite connected yet. So plot. Valingford's got a plot thing to do with this marriage. Stuff happened.
What stuff?
Stuff happened.
Yeah, we're trying to take it in.
Yeah, I know. So how's he going to be revenged?
Well, Valingford has upset the match with the Chester family by revealing that Manville was a suitor for M in the interim and behaved badly to her. But where the citizen is going, I'm not sure, but Valingford is going back to M.
But the citizen's going with him to Manchester. He doesn't want to go to Manchester, but he's agreed to go to Manchester.
I care not much to ride to Manchester.
We will presently take horse away. He doesn't want to, but he obviously sees it as being necessary.
Yeah.
Okay. Any additional thoughts or questions? I think we should just leave that for more evidence. You know, there isn't much evidence. Oh, sorry, Eric, go.
I was just going to ask how Valingford found out about this. Like, did he just ask around? Was it like just information that was lying there? Was it just like, yeah?
Or is he following that Manville?
I think he's been tailing Manville.
Yeah, this is for the sort of bonus episode on YouTube, isn't it? You know, it's not part of the main show, but you can find out some of the background detail in a separate series.
On a practical level, I think some parts of it were cut for performance, and it just was not resolved.
Yeah.
Necessarily so neatly, rather. So, which is not uncommon with some of the text that we've seen.
Yes, I suspect you are very right there.
It's bizarre for us because Manchester was a much smaller place than Chester at this time,
and even more so in 1066. I would have thought.
Oh, this isn't set in 1066, for heaven's sake.
Okay, let's move on further into Act 4. Let's see if things resolve themselves a bit more. We have a scene with William the Conqueror, the Ambassador of Denmark, Demarch, and other attendants. What news with the Denmark Ambassador?
Marry thus, the King of Denmark and my sovereign, doth send to know of thee what is the cause that injuriously against the law of arms thou hast stolen away his only daughter Blanche, the only stay and comfort of his life. Therefore by me he willeth thee to send his daughter Blanche, or else forthwith he will levy such an host as soon as she'll fetch her in despite of thee.
Ambassador, this answer I return thy king. He willeth me to send his daughter Blanche, saying I conveyed her from the Danish court, that never yet did once as think thereof. As for his menacing and daunting threats, I nil regard him nor his Danish power. For if he come to fetch her forth my realm, I will provide him such a banquet there, that he shall have small cause to give me thanks.
Is this your answer, then?
It is, and so begone.
I go, but to your cost.
Demarch, our subjects, as levied in civil broils, muster forthwith, and for to defend the realm, in hope whereof, that we shall find you true, we freely pardon this thy late offence.
Most humble thanks I render to your grace.
Don't do it again.
No, sir, I won't, sir.
And we find out in no way or what happened to Darrow. Who knows? Who knows what happened to him? Okay, yeah. So confusion reigns in the realm of William, who still hasn't taken the mask off his proposed wife, even though he's back home. I would have thought at this point, mask offy time. I would have thought. Obviously not.
Have they married yet?
I do not know.
Right.
It reminds me a little bit of that show that was on the BBC a while ago called The Last Kingdom. Because the guy Uhtred, he wasn't allowed to take her veil off until they got married, and he was getting very, very itchy by the end because he didn't know what his bride was going to look like.
So you're going with a sort of genuine practice here has somehow made its way into the plot of this.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, there was a point to the veil which was then lifted after the marriage. I mean, this is traditionally the bride wears this veil. The marriage is solemnized, at which point the veil is lifted and the man sees what he's got. I mean, it's a bit lucky dip.
It's like a game show.
I think you'll find there are such game shows that do exist. Liza, you're muted. You're muted, Liza.
I noticed that Elizabeth had her hand up at the beginning, and I wanted to know what you wanted to say.
Oh, right, yes, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is a nifty little play, isn't it? I really like the short scenes. I think that they're jam-packed with narrative intrigue. The characters are really compelling and really, almost funny. It's almost humorous in the way that they're displayed. Because I wasn't here for the beginning of the play, I thought I'd struggled to get on with it, to understand what's going on. But I haven't. You can jump right into it. It's a nifty little play. It's really great.
Yeah, the advantage with having so much incident is it doesn't matter what the plot was half an hour ago, because so much of it has already moved on. Other thoughts before we move complete Act 4? Helen.
This isn't a play with a plot. It's just one damn thing after another.
Yeah. Eric.
That's what makes it so good.
I was going to say clearly, what's his name? William has broken his oath because he said, as soon as we get to England, I'll marry you.
Well, but wait, where is Blanche? I mean, William got captured, and the soldiers said that they captured a masked lady, but is she now in the same place as William, or is she somewhere else?
It's been a busy time since he landed. I mean, there's been a mini civil war going on in his absence. So, I think to be fair, give him a couple of days.
Yeah, and presumably the real answer is Blanche is doubling one of the other parts.
Probably, yeah. Blanche is not a huge role within the play. She's mostly there for plot. Okay, we have one more scene. It's an intense scene, I think. I think it's a three-hander for most of it. It is the Millar, Valingford, and then enter M in a moment. Yes, eyes down for Act 4, Scene 3. Enter the Millar and Valingford.
Alas, gentlemen, why should you trouble yourself so much, considering the imperfections of my daughter, which is able to withdraw the love of any man from her, as it already hath done in her first choice? Master Manvile hath forsaken her, and at Chester shall be married to a man's daughter of no little wealth. But if my daughter knew so much, it would go very near her heart, I fear me.
Father Millar, such is my entire affection to your daughter, as no misfortune whatsoever can alter. My fellow Montney, as thou seest, gave quickly over, but I, by reason of my good meaning, am not so soon to be changed, although I am borne off with scorn and denial.
Enter M to them.
Trust me, sir, I know not what to say. My daughter is not to be compelled by me. But here she comes herself. Speak to her and spare not, for I never was troubled with love matters so much before.
Good Lord, shall I never be rid of this importunate man, rather? Now must I dissemble blindness again. Once more for thy sake, Manville, thus I am enforced, because I shall complete my full resolved mind to thee. Father, where are you?
Here, sweet M, answer this gentleman that would so fain enjoy thy love.
Where are you, sir? Will you never leave this idle and vain pursuit of love? Is not England stored enough to content you? But you must still trouble the poor contemptible maid of Manchester.
None can content me but the fair maid of Manchester.
I perceive love is vainly described, that, being blind himself, would have you likewise troubled with a blind wife, having the benefit of your eyes. But neither follow him so much in folly, but love one in whom you may better delight.
Father Millar, thy daughter shall have honour by granting me her love. I am a gentleman of King William's court, and no mean man in King William's favour.
If you be a lord, sir, as you say, you offer both yourself and me great wrong. Yours as a parent in limiting your love so unorderly, for which you rashly endure reproachment. Mine as open and evident, when, being shut from the vanities of this world, you would have me as an open gazing stock to all the world. For lust, not love, leads you into this error. But from the one I will keep me as well as I can, and yield the other to none but to my father, as I am bound by duty.
Why, fair M, Manville hath forsaken thee, and must at Chester be married, which if I speak otherwise than true, let thy father speak what credibly he hath heard.
But can it be Manville will deal so unkindly to reward my justice with such monstrous ungentleness? Have I dissembled for thy sake, and dost thou now thus requite it? Indeed, these many days I have not seen him, which hath made me marvel at his long absence. But, father, are you assured of the words he spake were concerning Manville?
In sooth, daughter, now it is forth I must needs confirm it. Master Manville hath forsaken thee, and at Chester must be married to a man's daughter of no little wealth. His own father procures it, and therefore I dare credit it. And do thou believe it, for trust me, daughter, it is so.
Then, good father, pardon the injury that I have done to you, only causing your grief, by overfond affecting a man so trothless. And you likewise, sir, I pray hold me excused, as I hope this cause will allow sufficiently for me. My love to Manville, thinking he would requite it, hath made me double with my father and you, and many more besides, which I will no longer hide from you. That enticing speeches should not beguile me. I have made myself death to any but to him. Unless any man's person should please me more than his, I have dissembled the want of sight. Both which shadows of my irrevocable affections I have not spared to confirm before him, my father, and all other amorous solicitors. Wherewith not made acquainted, I perceive my true intent hath wrought mine own sorrow, and seeking by love to be regarded, am cut out with contempt and despised.
Tell me, sweet Em, hast thou but feigned all this while for his love that hath so discourteously forsaken thee?
Credit me, father, I've told you the truth, wherewith I desire you and Lord Valingford not to be displeased. For aught else I shall say, let my present grief hold me excused. But may I live to see that ungrateful man justly rewarded for his treachery, poor Em would think herself not a little happy. Favour my departing at this instant, for my troubled thought desires to meditate alone in silence.
And exit M.
Will not Em show one cheerful look on Valingford?
Alas, sir, blame her not. You see she hath good cause, being so handled by this gentleman. And so I'll leave you, and go comfort my poor wench as well as I may.
And exit the Millar.
Farewell, good father.
And exit Valingford. Thus ends Act 4. It's people are starting to tell each other the truth about things. It's all coming tumbling out, but no resolution has been occurred. Thoughts.
What a mess.
Yeah.
Isn't love awful? Helen.
Allingford's looking a lot more hopeful now,
Mm-hmm.
being the only one still in the game.
Tamara.
It sounds horrible, but I quite like the fact that I like what I'm thinking might happen, what I'm hoping might happen, because she's done all this for this guy, and he's betraying her like this, and it's just, he said, I don't trust you unless you show me that you're faithful. I can't trust your word on it. And she's done this whole thing, and then he goes off and leaves her, and it makes the whole thing that we talked about in terms of problematic stuff a little bit less at the moment. Bearing in mind that obviously the bar is very low, and therefore Valingford seems to be the better guy.
I say, as of yet, I haven't seen that Valingford's done anything particularly despicable. Borderline, but he hasn't actively been a complete and utter bastard yet. There's still time. Yes, Liza.
Well, he gives her the news that will break her heart, and then expects her to look cheerfully on him. My personal opinion is that both these guys are trash. I wonder if Manvile isn't. Manville is probably going to make the excuse that not only his abandonment of her, but also his intended marriage was just a sham to try her affections or something. In which case he's been an utter douche to two women, not just one.
Other thoughts? No, the room is silent. It's going to be hell, people. We have Act 5, Scene 1. There is no Scene 2. It is one long scene as we try to reach a resolution to all the plots. Will the play manager, ladies and gentlemen, eyes down for the next round? I'm going to ask Dan, could you read the stage directions as well as be the Millar? Because I think you are mostly free for when that happens. Some of us may be talking at the same time as ourselves, but I don't think it's too bad. I think it's okay in this scene. We may hopefully avoid the incidents we had earlier. Helen.
I don't have a part in Act 5, Scene 1.
Oh, do you not? In that
Not
case,
at all. So if you want to use me for anything, I'm free.
well, in that case, what we'll do is we'll put you down as stage directions then.
Okay.
And in the event that we need an additional voice, we will fling those words at you.
Right.
We'll try it that way.
Let me find the start of the scene then, if I'm going to be.
Yes. Act 5, Scene 1. Alan, are you online?
I am indeed, sir.
Excellent. We have the King of Denmark back. We can the previous King of Denmark can now step down. Okay, Helen, away with the scene, please.
Enter Zweno, King of Denmark, with Rocillio and other attendants.
Rocillio, is this the place whereas the Duke William should meet me?
It is, I'd like your grace.
Go, Captain. Away. Regard the charge I gave. See our men be marshalled to the fight. Dispose the wards as lately was devised. And let the prisoners under several guards be kept apart until you hear from us. Let this suffice. You know my resolution. If William, Duke of Saxons, be the man that by his answer sent us he would seem, not words but wounds, not parleys but alarms, must be decider of this controversy. Rocillio, stay with me. The rest, be gone.
And they leave. Enter William and Demarch with other attendants.
All but Demarch, go shroud you out of sight, for I will go parley with the prince myself.
Should Zweno by this parley call you forth upon intent injuriously to deal, this offereth too much opportunity.
No, no, Demarch, that were a breach against the law of arms. Therefore be gone, and leave us here alone.
And all except William leave.
I see that Zweno is master of his word. Zweno, William of Saxony greeteth thee, either well or ill, according to thy intent. If well thou wish to him and Saxony, he bids thee friendly welcome as he can. If ill thou wish to him and Saxony, he must withstand thy malice as he may.
William, for no other name and title will I give none, to him who, were he worthy of those honours that fortune and his predecessors left, I ought by right and humane courtesy to grace his style with Duke of Saxony. But, for I find a base, degenerate mind, I frame my speech according to the man, and not the state that he unworthy holds.
Herein, Zweno, dost thou abase thy state to break the peace which by our ancestors have heretofore been honourably kept?
And should that peace for ever have been kept, had not thyself been author of the breach? Nor stands it with the honour of my state, or nature of a father to his child, that I should be so robbed of my daughter, and not unto the utmost of my power, revenge so intolerable an injury?
Is this the colour of thy quarrel, Zweno? I well perceive the wisest man may err, and think you I conveyed away your daughter Blanch?
Art thou so impudent to deny thou didst, when that the proof thereof is manifest?
What proof is there?
Thine own confession is sufficient proof.
Did I confess I stole your daughter Blanch?
Thou didst confess thou hadst a lady hence.
I have, and do.
Why, that was Blanche, my daughter.
Nay, that was Mariana, who wrongfully thou detainest prisoner.
Shameless persisting in thy ill, thou dost maintain a manifest untruth, as she shall justify unto the teeth. Rocillio, fetch her and the Marquis hither.
Exit Rocillio for Mariana.
It cannot be, I should be so deceived.
I heard this night among the soldiers that in their watch they took a pensive lady, who at the appointment of the Lord de Roe is yet in keeping. What she is I know not, only thus much I overheard by chance.
And what of this?
I may be Blanche, the King of Denmark's daughter.
It may be so, but on my life it is not. Yet, Demarch, go and fetch her straight.
Exit Demarch. Enter Rocillio with the Marquis.
Pleaseth your highness, here's the Marquis and Mariana.
See here, Duke William, your competitors that were consenting to my daughter's escape. Let them resolve you of the truth therein. And here I vow and solemnly protest that in thy presence they shall lose their heads, unless I hear whereas my daughter is.
O Marquis Lubeck, how it grieveth me that for my sake thou shouldst endure these bonds. Bejudge my soul that feels the martyrdom.
Duke William, you know it's for your cause. It pleaseth thus the king to misconceive of me, and for his pleasure doth me injury.
Enter Demarch with the Lady Blanch.
May it please your highness, here's the lady whom you sent me for.
Away, Demarch. What tellest thou me of ladies? I so detest the dealing of their sex, that as that I count a lover's state to be the basest and vilest slavery in the world.
What humours are these? Here's a strange alteration.
See, Duke William, is this Blanche or no? You know her if you see her, I am sure.
Zweno, I was deceived, yea, utterly deceived. Yet this is she, this same is Lady Blanch, and for mine error, here I am content to do whatsoever Zweno shall set down. Ah, cruel Mariana, thus to use the man which loved and honoured thee with his heart.
Oops, that's me too. When first I came into your highness' court, and William often importing me of love, I did devise, to ease the grief your daughter did sustain, she should meet Sir William masked, as I it were. This put in proof did take so good effect, as yet it seems his grace is not resolved. But it was I which he conveyed away. But it was I.
May this be true. It cannot be but true. Was it Lady Blanche which I conveyed away? Unconstant Mariana, thus to deal with him which meant to thee naught but faith.
Pardon, dear father, my follies that are past, wherein I have neglected my duty, which I in reverence ought to show your grace. For led by love, I thus have gone astray, and now repent the errors I was in.
Stand up, dear daughter, though thy fault deserves for to be punished in the extremest sort. Yet love, that covers multitude of sins, makes love in parents wink at children's faults. Sufficeth, Blanche, thy father loves thee so, thy follies past he knows, but will not know. And there, Duke William, take my daughter to thy wife, for well I am assured she loves thee well.
A proper conjunction, as who should say lately, come out of the fire, I would go thrust myself into the flame. Yet, mistress, nice, go saint it where she list, and coyly quaint it with dissembling face. I hold in scorn the fooleries that they use. I, being free, will never subject myself to any such as she is underneath the sun.
Refusest thou to take my daughter to thy wife? I tell thee, Duke, this rash denial may bring more mischief on thee than thou canst avoid.
Conceit hath wrought such general dislike through the false dealing of Mariana that utterly I do abhor their sex. They're all disloyal, unconstant, all unjust. Who tries as I have tried and finds as I have found will say there's no such creatures on the ground.
Unconstant knight! Though some deserve no trust, there's others faithful, loving, loyal, and just.
Enter to them Valingford with M, and the Millar, and Montney, and Manvile, and Elner.
How now, Lord Valingford? What makes these women here?
Here be two women, may it please your grace, that are contracted to one man, and are in strife whether shall him have to their husband.
Stand forth, women, and say to whether of you he first give his faith?
To me, forsooth.
To me, gracious lord.
Ugh. Speak, Manville, to whither didst thou give thy faith?
To say the truth, this maid hath lost my love.
Elner?
Yes, Manville, there was no witness by.
Thy conscience, Manville, is 100 witnesses.
She has stolen conscience to serve her own turn, but you are deceived in faith. He will none of you.
Indeed, dread lord, so dear I held her love, as in the same I put my whole delight. But some impediments, which at that instant happened, made me forsake her quite, for which I had her father's frank consent.
What were the impediments?
Why, she could neither hear nor see.
Well, now she doth both. Maiden, how were you cured?
Pardon, my lord, I'll tell your grace the troth, be it not imputed to me as discredit. I loved this Manville so much that still my thought, when he was absent, did present to me the form and feature of that countenance which I did shrine an idol in mine heart. And never could I see a man, methought, that equalled Manville in my partial eye. Nor was there any love between us lost, but that I held the same in high regard, until repair of some unto our house, of whom my Manville grew thus jealous. As if he took exception, I vouchsafed to hear them speak or saw them when they came, on which I straight took order with myself to void the scruple of his conscience, by counterfeiting that I neither saw nor heard, any ways to rid my hands of them. All this I did to keep my Manville's love, which he unkindly seeks for to reward.
And did my aim to keep her faith with me dissemble that she's neither heard nor saw? Pardon me, sweet M, for I am only thine.
Lay off thy hands, disloyal as thou art, nor shalt thou have possession of my love, that can so finely shift thy matters off. Put case I had been blind and could not see, as oftentimes such visitations fall that pleaseth God, which all things doth dispose. Shouldst thou forsake me in regard of that? I tell thee, Manville, hadst thou been blind or deaf or dumb or else what impediments might befall to man, Emma would have loved and kept and honoured thee, yea, begged if wealth had failed for thy relief.
Forgive me, sweet M.
I do forgive thee with my heart, and will forget thee too, if case I can, but never speak to me nor seem to know me.
Farewell, Frost. Well, farewell, which that will. Now, Elner, I am thine own, my girl.
Mine, Manville, thou never shalt be mine. I so detest thy villainy, that whilst I live I will abhor thy company.
It comes to this. Of late I had choice of twain on either side to have me to her husband, and now I'm utterly rejected of them both.
My lord, this gentleman, when time was, stood something in our sight, and now I think it not amiss to laugh at him that sometimes scorned at us.
Content, my lord, invent the form.
Then thus.
I see that women are not general evils. Blanche is fair. Methinks I see in her a modest countenance, a heavenly blush. Zweno, receive a reconciled for, not as thy friend, but as thy son-in-law, if so that thou be thus content.
I joy to see your grace so tractable. Here, take my daughter Blanche, and after my decease, the Demark crown.
How, sir, now, sir, how stands the case with you?
I partly am persuaded as your graces. My lord, he is best at ease and meddleth least.
Sir, may a man be so bold as to crave a word with you?
Yea, 2 or 3. What are they?
I say this maid will have thee to her husband.
And I say this, and thereof will I lay £100.
And I say this, whereon I will lay as much.
And I say neither. What say you to that?
If that be true, then are we both deceived?
Why, it is true, and you are both deceived.
In mine eyes, this is the properest wench. Might I advise thee, take her unto thy wife.
Seems to me she hath refused him.
Why, there's the spite.
If one refuse him, yet may he have the other.
He will ask but her goodwill and all her friends.
Might I advise thee, let them both alone.
Yea, that's the course, and thereon will I stand. Such idle love henceforth I will detest.
The fox will eat no grapes, and why?
I know full well, because they hand too high.
And may it be a miller's daughter by her birth? I cannot think, but she is better born.
Sir Thomas Goddard hight this reverent man, famed for his virtues and his good success, whose fame hath been renowned through the world.
Sir Thomas Goddard, welcome to thy prince, and fair M, frolic with thy good father. As glad I am to find Sir Thomas Goddard as good Sir Edward Trefford on the plains. He like a shepherd, and thou our country miller.
And longer let not Goddard live a day, than he in honour loves his sovereign.
But say, Sir Thomas, shall I give thy daughter?
Goddard, and all that he hath, doth rest at the pleasure of your majesty.
And eeny, meeny, miny, mo. What says M to lovely Valingford? Please, seemed he loved you well, and for your sake, durst leave his king.
Rests at the pleasure of your highness, and would I were a wife for his desert.
Then here, Lord Valingford, receive fair M. Here, take her, make her thy espoused wife. Go in. That preparation may be made to see these nuptials solemnly performed.
They all leave, sound drums and trumpets,
etc. Okay, there were some things there.
Can I just say, I meant to say desert. Clearly I'm hungry.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, some of that was really, really good. I'm liking the intimation there that people are generally hitting each other at various important moments in the dramaturgy. It gets that last page or so. Just I kind of don't want to unpack it because I'm sort of just going. I just kind of want to cut most of that because we have M going fuck off, and then we get Elner going go off, and that's kind of where I want it to end because and I kind of don't want the king to go have this sudden change of heart. Liza, you're muted.
But by Fair M's example and Eleanor's, in fact, the king has learned that hashtag not all women are terrible. I mean, the lesson the audience has learned is that all men seem to be terrible.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and the question of what the play is trying to say, or what we could, with some massaging, make the play to say. Most of the time, it seems to be going in the right direction as an overall thesis that men are all terrible, and that sort of functions. And then every so often, you're just going, I'm not sure what the player is saying at this precise moment in time, and things. Yeah, other thoughts, Liza?
Well, is the corollary then that you should marry the least terrible? Because in both Blanche's case and M's, that seems to be what happens. That Valingford didn't particularly distinguish himself, and William has not shown himself to be prime husband material. Nor is he particularly affectionate toward Blanche. But is it sort of a constancy rewarded thing that the person who has the most bloody-minded persistence gets married? Because that's the romantic comedy fallacy. It's like, do terrible things to the person that hates you until they fall in love with you, which, like, dudes, in real life, that doesn't work.
Tamara.
Well, I was just gonna say, I something about the fact that the king just turns around and goes, "Should I give your daughter?" It's so horrible and callous. I would almost hate to cut it because William's been horrible the whole time. So I feel if we want to massage it, it would be he says that and then everybody just leaves him on stage.
Well, it gets worse because, of course, he basically, with no recourse to anyone, just says, "Oh, you marry him." You know, it's got nothing at that point. It really isn't her choice. You know, the only point in the play where she hasn't actually, you know, and there's all sorts of questions about that. Elizabeth, did I see a hand earlier?
No, you didn't see a hand earlier. I feel the ending was a little bit anticlimactic. We had all this build-up with all these relationships and will they, won't they? Like Liza said, it was the rom-com effect. And at the end, I think it's Valingford and M at the end, and it just kind of fell a bit flat. I feel like it didn't land the ending, didn't stick the ending, because at the end William just says you'll marry you and you'll marry him, and that's that.
Yes, Francis.
Yeah, I just found it strange the way the two plot strands came together right at the end like this. You know, the miller turns up with his daughter and Manvile, and while the king is parleying with a fellow foreign king. And it's just like, hey, Your Majesty, can you sort out this minor marriage dispute? It was just strange.
Well, as we all remember from the history books, the famous Danish invasion that ended up in Manchester, because it's an obvious landing point for an invading Danish force. Eric, did I see a hand?
Yeah, I was gonna say that I kind of feel like you could end it there and then at the end of the play and then just add right to be continued at the end of it and just create a second part where they get divorced or kill each other or something. But also I was thinking, well, what would have been a satisfactory ending, even out of the comedy context? What would have been a satisfactory ending to the audience?
Yeah, good question. I don't have an answer. I'm just raising questions at the moment. Liza?
I think it depends which audience we mean. The audience at the time of this play, or us. Because I think those may be two different answers. To us, the king saying, "Shall I give your daughter?" is, pretty gross. M is a strong-willed and intelligent girl and should choose her own husband. But at the same time, her father being raised back to his status of a knight and the king giving his daughter in marriage is, it's a thing consequent of his rise in social status. And presumably William will give some kind of dowry with her. So, hey, if she has to marry this guy she wasn't particularly enthusiastic about, at least they'll be rich and noble.
Not to be knocked. I think we should also just raise in Act 5 a little cheer for Lord Darrow, who, in his almost entire stage absence, managed to explain the question we asked the last act as to where did Blanche go. It's all Darrow's fault. She got caught by the opposing side in the dispute, and has only just arrived. like a late delivery package got left by the bins or something, and has finally turned up. Helen.
I would like to say something on behalf of Valingford, because all the way through, he's been actually remarkably percipient. He never gets taken in. He actually looks at what's going on. He looks at Em and he says, she's feigning. And he's the only one who does that, apart from Trotter, who doesn't count.
I think Trotter should get her in the end myself, but you know.
No. But yeah, I mean, where is Trotter in all this?
Doubling as somebody else, presumably.
Yeah.
Working
but
where
nevertheless,
other nobles...
I mean, I think the fact that Valingford is watching and is also aware enough of Em not to be taken in by her deceit says something for the relationship.
And it's you know, it is that thing that yes, Valingford does you know, present her with proof that her beloved is a wrong 'un, but during the scene when that is presented, it's interesting. He only actually speaks about being disappointed at the end of the scene when she's not on stage. He doesn't go to Em and says, "Oh, why didn't you love me?" It's afterwards he went, "Ah, that didn't go very well." And the way he's presented is you know, regardless of whether it's a good thing what he did, you know, he isn't presenting himself to Em as a terrible person in the way that other people have. Talking about how characters are presenting themselves to each other at this stage. People making terrible decisions to do with love. Eric.
I was going to say Trotter's probably back at the mill working while all these people are trying to find out who they're going to marry because they have nothing better to do.
Yeah,
but someone's got to keep the aristos in the stars at which they've become accustomed.
And then we get this betting sequence at the end. It was a betting sequence. Did we misunderstand? You know, what the... I was just going, what's going... I don't understand what's going on.
It was a very messy ending, I found.
Well, it's Act 5
yeah.
of a very complicated series of entanglements. I mean, you know, it's openly contrived. I think that's the thing. Any other thoughts about Act 5?
Yes,
Helen?
Sir Edmund Trefford gets another name check.
Yeah.
He's no longer threshing or using his flail on the threshing floor. He's now a shepherd.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? I mean, that's 2 name checks, one of them at a crucial point of Act 5.
There must be another play, mustn't there?
Well, Lois suggested that yesterday. I just think the thing is, it gets mentioned when they're talking about the knighthoods, you know, who's up and who's down. So it just seems to be that those were the 2 knights who lost out. In you know, there were only 2 knights of the realm who lost out due to the Norman conquests. When did knights come about in that sort of sense?
Oh yes. But are we in England? We seem to have been in Saxony. I mean, I got very confused.
I think the Danes came to
William
us.
of Saxony.
I think.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was weird.
Someone said in the chat that it should have been Normandy, that it's not in Saxony in fact.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's a complicated... Sorry, go Lynn.
Yeah, I was just echoing Elizabeth. Yeah, it was. We know him in history as William of Normandy or William the Bastard, appropriately enough. But yeah, the Saxony thing confused me as well.
Well, aren't the Normans, sort of an extension of various Scandinavian royalty, as it were? Didn't they work south, then across the Channel? I seem to think.
Unless they're calling England Saxony, because it's full of Saxons.
It's possible. I was thinking about that because of, Wessex being West Saxony, and but it's still weird.
Tamara.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing that Liza did, that possibly they're talking about England, because obviously there wasn't England, it was the Anglo-Saxon.
But they did call it England at the time. In fact, the term Anglo-Saxon has fallen from favor among medievalists because very few people at the time used it. We use it retrospectively to distinguish them from the Normans, but it's also been appropriated by white supremacists, which is pretty gross also.
Yes, it was only ever really a term used in translation. I think there's only about 5 examples, I think, from the period. It's basically not, it's a retrospective thing.
They called themselves English.
So was it, sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, was it called England at what stage? What, after Alfred?
Athelstan.
Oh, okay.
Athelstan was the first king of England, really.
Okay.
Who was Alfred the Great's grandson.
Yeah. No, I do know that. I know that. I just didn't know that they called it England at that point.
No, I was going to cover much of what's just been said. That the use of the term Saxony, I think, is simply sloppy usage for the land of the Saxons, because the Saxons were still the overwhelming population. The Norman invasion was a takeover by a very small elite group, effectively. And yes, they were originally Northern Europeans, because Norman is an abbreviation of Northmen, because they were originally Vikings.
That obviously, they were related to the Norsemen that took part of France.
Yep.
On that note, are we actually in Denmark when we talk to Zweno, or are we in the Danelaw? Are we in the north of England?
I'm assuming we're in the north of England. They can't have travelled from Manchester just to decide who's marrying whom. It seems excessive.
The Danelaw didn't exist, as I understand it, at that point. I think that disappeared at the time of the conquest.
Yeah, I think at this point,
well before.
We should point out that the connection with history in this play is tenuous at best. So I think possibly we're going down a rabbit hole that is not desperately helpful.
Also a really messy time period in history. Let's add that. It's pretty messy before the Normans turn up, really.
And
Eric.
I was just going to solve the Edmund Trefford thing. I just typed it into Google, and what came up was various Sir Edmunds, knights, and so on, who died in either 1514, 1533, or 1590. So it could be one of those guys.
Weird name check.
Topical ref.
Any mention of sheep?
There's one who was I don't know, sort of semi-related to the Queen. I don't know. It's very sort of tenuous, but he was steward of the lands of the Collegiate Church of Manchester in 1575. So maybe he was that kind of shepherd.
Topical reference.
Yeah.
And Trafford. Is another
Trafford Park.
Yeah, it's Trafford, basically. It's Edmund Trafford. Yeah.
Okay.
Born in
I think
1526.
we're again going down a fascinating tangent. Lynn.
I was just going to say wacky theory, since this is an anonymous play, maybe that's the author name checking himself.
You mean that he might have written another play about this Edmund dude disguising himself as a shepherd?
No, the author is Edmund.
Oh.
Anyway, never. It's not really important. in terms of the play itself.
Yeah. Okay. Let's return to the play. We're into extra time, and it's a Friday. So let's go. Final thoughts about the play overall. What might we do with it? Remember, this is not a sorting hat. We're not here to discuss whether we want to do it above or below other plays. We're here to say what we would do with it if someone handed us some money to make it happen. You have carte blanche. Do what you like with the text. Remember, author's dead. So, not going to sue. Not going to sue. So, it may be a matter of question of what you're doing with a spin. What do we massage, or do we just, leave it to its own devices? It has been performed in modern times about 7 years ago in London, and I didn't get to see it, but I did see reviews, so it did occur. It has got a modern performance history. And that's something I'd like to dig into at some point in the future. So, going around the room, Tamara first. Tamara, tell us about your production.
I want to pick up a thread that I didn't pick up earlier, which is somebody said, and we've just talked about, no, sorry, Helen. Yes, history in general is messy. It wasn't not messy after the Normans, obviously. But the messy ending, rom-coms, I found, even modern ones, are incredibly messy. If you look back at rom-coms, and I really don't like most rom-coms, because it always ends with, and that's not going to be a happy ending for a long time. That's going to end up being a divorce and or a bunch of divorces. So I think that, it's still very much a rom-com for me, also with some of the problematic themes, like the idea that marriage is just solve it. So that's the problematic bit. On the other hand, I really enjoyed this play. I'd really like to see it, and I'd love to see what solutions can be found to make it maybe less problematic, or just make it instead raise these problematic issues in a way that the audience will go, yeah. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, final thoughts from Helen.
I think the key to it is having the right actor playing Valingford. The actor playing Valingford has to be the most desirable man on the stage from every point of view. And I think if you do that, then a lot of the problems go away.
Okay. Anything more, Helen?
No.
No. Short, sweet, to the point. That's absolutely allowed. You don't have to do an essay. We are allowed to be brief. Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the play, actually. I like the rom-comness of it. What I would do if I was putting it on is I would try and go for a more female cast. That's what I would do, because I think that would work out some of the misogyny that the play has in it. If once the cast was female. And yeah, that's what I would do with it.
Yeah, excellent. Dan, final thoughts?
Yeah, not much more from what I said yesterday. I'd rather play it straight, because I think that misogyny existed then and it exists now. So people can read into that what they will. Most likely, the audiences of today will look at it the way that most of the people in this room were looking at with kind of just some disgust, essentially, at some or most or all of the characters. Apart from that, I did not see, I remember when they did Fair M in London, I didn't actually see it, but I recall that they heavily adapted it from what I read. And that I'm just not a fan of doing with, as I say every time we talk about this. If we're going to do this type of play, I think that people should see what was being done written at the time, rather than trying to pacify an audience of today. I think, and then you end up with a lot of people who are unhappy because it still is not, you're never going to please everyone.
Remember, it's not an either or. You can do both, because this is our fantasy, so it's fine. Alan, final thoughts.
Well, I'm finding it difficult to comment on this because I missed a significant chunk of it due to power cut. Yeah, I mean, I think Tamara's right. This is a rom-com, and it's a genre that I've never really understood and never really liked. The one contrary point I would just lob into the pond is that effectively you could almost describe this play as being a misandry, on the basis the women seem to come out of it rather better than the men.
Debate. Lynn, final thoughts.
Oh yes, I have so many. I'll try to edit that down to a little bit. For one thing, what Helen said really resonated with me. That I think it will address a multitude of evils if Manvile is not particularly charming or attractive, and you really play up the jealousy, and you make and Valingford is the matinee idol. He's the one that all the women in the audience are like, oh my God, why doesn't she want him? I'm having a hot flash. So by the end seems more of something that the audience wants for the characters. And I think, despite all the problems, M's last long speech, where she says, if any of this had happened to you, if you had lost your sight or your hearing or had some other terrible thing happen to you, I would have stuck with you because that's what love means. And that's what keeping your promises means. And now I want to have nothing to do with you because you're a phony. That's such a bingo moment that the rest of the play almost seems worth it. That's sort of the thing. If this was 70s television or 60s television, you'd have the music swelling underneath to emphasize that moment. The one adapty thing that I'm sure I would do is I think I would leave M's ultimate choice kind of ambiguous. When William says, as the king, I'm going to say, I think you should marry this guy, and her answer would be something like, we'll see about that. So we leave hope that Valingford will have earned his stripes, but we still leave it in her court to make that choice.
I mean, the thing is, she's really not in a fit state to be making any kind of, romantic decisions, because she's just had her heart broken, and there's it's not the right time for that kind of thing to be happening at that moment. It's really interesting.
So I'm kind of beginning to like the unexpected things about it. The fact that the marriages don't sort out the way we expected. One thing we haven't talked about is how little the clown has to do. Trotter is obviously the clown character, and he has so little stage time. That's all just unusual structurally for an early modern play. So I'm sort of beginning to warm to the weirdness of it.
I think there's a structural thing we should say about clowns, and we've noticed this quite a lot. I don't think it is actually unusual. We have disappearing clown syndrome a lot. That the clown does not appear in the second half many times, and I think it's actually the clown just gets in the way of the plot. I don't think it's the clown has to double. I think the clown probably does double. I think it's in the same way that two-part plays, that some of them start off comedies and then the second one's a tragedy. I think it might be that sort of principle. So I wonder about that. It's
But in the first half, he has so little to do.
Yeah, I think it's like he beds the audience in and then is quietly dispensed with once the plot gets going. And I wonder if that's some sort of structural thing that is in the house guidelines for new writers. When they come in to do a play, keep the clown busy, but you can drop him by Act 5 or 3. Eric, final thoughts?
I don't know. I enjoyed being here and sort of hearing everyone's opinions about it and stuff. But I don't know, like, because I there's a part of me going, this is a historic comedy, because a lot of the stuff would not really work nowadays. Like, you couldn't adapt it, as in, like, update it. You couldn't. There's no way to bring it into, like, the modern world. Like, I mean, in terms of content. But you, like, I don't know. I guess you could play it straight, or like as a play. And there's a part of me going, why don't you just gender swap and see what happens? But I think that that's a gag that's been done before. Although with this particular play, it would be interesting to see. But then M loses her great speech, which is very sad because it's a very good speech.
Liza, I think you're last.
Yeah, I mean, if I were handed this to direct, picking up on some things that other people in the room have said, depending on what happened in the room with the actors, because, a director can go in with concepts, but then the reality of what comes out is often different. I would love to see what we could find about M's response just at the end of that scene to her father's advancement in status resulting in her being given. Also, the other question is, what happens to Elner? And ideally, if I were handed this to direct, I'd also want to commission another playwright, possibly a team of women playwrights, to write either a sequel like The Adventures of Fair Elner, or like everyone gets a divorce and goes to live on an island with a cocktail bar, or just a response play, maybe something set earlier, maybe something about Ethelflad, who knows. But that's how I would balance the play. I'd look to do what we could within the story and not necessarily change too much unless it felt extremely necessary.
My final thoughts, because there are various questions, and a question I sort of raised last time, is what is the play trying to do? This is a play that does have an awful lot of misogynistic characters, but is the play putting forward that, or is it critiquing it? It seems most of the time it is critiquing the characters. So the play's heart, if clumsy in places and still problematic in places, is in the right place, then the question of what we do with it today is very much leaning into this. Is it a satire? We stumble around with genre questions because I don't see it as a rom-com. I see it almost as an anti-rom-com. It has the structure of rom-com in the sense that at the end everyone's got to get married, or do they? And is it very satisfying?
Mariana doesn't. Mariana doesn't.
No. It's inferred she will, but that whole plot line hasn't been very neatly tied up, because there was a whole thing of you should marry my marry my mate thing, which has no resolution whatsoever. So there are lots of gaps, and I think there is an interesting question about not so much adapting, but maybe there are some scenes we should write to put in to fill in some of those gaps, or as Liza's saying, separate pieces that could go, because again, it's not a long play. We could put in a 40-minute after piece to go with it, and work with it. The question also, which was raised last time about M's mock blindness and lack of hearing. The question is that to be played for laughs? And I'm not actually sure that it is. And the question with that is, it would be more problematic. I think we're on a spectrum of problematicness here. If this was a play about someone who was blind, written by someone who wasn't, and it was doing awkward and uncomfortable things here. I mean, while it is not ideal to be having a character doing that kind of trick, the question of whether we're going too far by going, oh no, that feels awkward and untidy, is something that I think we need to interrogate a little deeper, rather than go too far at this stage with that. I think that's a question of talking to other people who and see what happens there. So yeah, only one question I would kind of want to answer is actually, who is Montney? Who is he? I know who Manvile is. I vaguely know who the Valingford is. No idea who Montney is.
A useful idiot.
He's the one in the middle who, just to make it a 3.
Or
number
number
3.
2.
Yeah, just to make that even. Yeah, it's it's a really, for such a short play that feels like it's missing bits. It has so much potential, but it also has so much potential to go horribly, horribly wrong. It's sort of like you've got some load of sweaty gelignite, and you just don't know if it's going to explode or not, and whether you're going to get it onto the rocket launcher in time. On that note, I think everyone in the room has had their say, and unless anyone has a sudden thing to leap in with, I'm going to close the session. Thank all the readers who were here, who managed to stay through electricity, blackouts, and all the rest of it, and say farewell.
Bye.
Bye.
Aye.